La Lanterna, a spotlight in Italian football, is a podcast that dives into the beautiful game seen from the eyes of two fans from the oldest team in Italy's point of view. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, Canadian and Genovese, together with my friend Matt Killen, an American-born and Genoa fan. Every week, we'll tell you all you need to know about the only team you need to know about, Genoa CFC. Plus, we'll have guests and provide updates from around the magical world of Italian football. Benvenuti, welcome to La Lanterna podcast. This is Fabrizio from Toronto with my best buddy.
Hey Fabry, it's Matt. How you doing? Coming live from New York.
Oh, that was going to say, like, where are you? Of course you're in New York.
We always say this. Everyone knows at this point. You're in Toronto. I'm in New York. I'll do the live in New York thing. I like to.
Well, I expect to have like a gazillion new fans every episode listening in, saying, "Who the heck are these two guys?" Right?
Fair enough. You're right. Well,
but I mean, I'm being funny, but I'm not happy about the match, Matt.
Yeah, this was pretty disappointing. I think a lot of the match, I was thinking to myself with a weird level of contentness, I suppose, that my scoreless draw prediction was about to come correct. And of course, it ultimately did not. Not that I was really rooting for that outcome to begin with, but I mean, what can you say? I think the match totally turns when Aaron Martin gets sent off. I think you can say probably also before that, though, it wasn't like we were doing all that much anyway to look like we were going after it. And as Genoa fans, this one's a really hard one, I think, because it's not that Lecce were there for the taking in any sense. You know, they've had a good campaign already thus far. They're well coached. We knew it was going to be a difficult match away from home. That's kind of why I didn't think we were going to get the win anyway. But we just don't seem capable of having any sort of connection between our midfield and our forwards. And we don't seem like we're really trying to do anything that resembles anything other than maybe nick a couple of goals from some set pieces or something like that. And I think that's where the gripe is right now. I don't think it will stay this way. I don't believe that was intentional. I know I've said it a couple of times, and probably people will disagree with me and say, how can you say that wasn't intentional? Because look at every match we've seen and look at the kind of clear results and the clear statistics that have happened in every match. But I don't believe that Gilardino is truly negative. And I look back even just to one more match when we're playing Napoli, and that's my kind of counter proof to this whole thing, is that we had a really difficult match. We knew we needed to be defensive. I think you can say we were defensive in the way we were approaching the match in our shape, but we also were intentionally aggressive once we did have that possession. We were not playing some uber conservative, let's just go pass it sideways a bunch of times and wait till the 90 minutes runs out and then hopefully we get a point. We were going for opportunities, and that's why we were up 2-0. And we were up to, even before we had the first goal, we were going for opportunities. We were trying to make things happen. You had Rutegui taking these crazy shots. You had all sorts of things going on. So I think you look back at Napoli and you say, well, there was some forward progress there. There was some intentional attacking spirit. But then on the flip side of it, you kind of, like I said, we're not really creating that many chances. We're not really getting that many shots on target. We hardly had any shots on target in this match. And it's just a repeat pattern where we happen to convert our chances against Lazio. We win that match. We didn't really have any chances against Torino. Probably that should have been a draw, but we lose that match because we didn't really get anything real out of it. Napoli, we were really good at taking what we're able to get. Lecce, we don't have anything. So I think like the consistent sort of pattern here is we're not getting that many opportunities. And the question is, like, how are we going to respond? How are we going to change this?
So I hear you. I don't fully disagree with you, but I have some comments. So you saying certain things, and I want to remark the most important one, where we lost a player.
Yeah, absolutely. That completely changed the match.
Extremely important player, not because of the individual, which is not necessarily the one that is shining the most, but it definitely impacted the structure and the module. Yes. And that at the 36th minute. Now,
absolutely
having said that, the first 15 minutes we were under, we were not performing. We were not necessarily asleep, because we were not asleep, but it was just difficult to come out of our half. Yeah. While after 15 minutes, so 10, 20 minutes after that, am I doing the calculation right? Yeah, 36, 10, 20, 15, 20 minutes after that, essentially, you started to see certain aspects of the game slowly. So it wasn't just like out of the blue. It doesn't happen like that, where we were starting to get a little bit more control, right? Ultimately, even though we were a man down, we had the most ball possession since the beginning. Mm-hmm. Which is another aspect that we have to take in consideration. Another aspect that people are not, they're understanding it, but not factoring that in. While he's a great tactician, he is still new. He's a new coach. With us, he was in Serie B. Before that was with our Primavera for only 6 months. Before that was Serie D. So what I'm trying to say with this is, while he still needs time for growth, he's living it with us. Now, the typical Genoano is impatient with the announcements, which were not direct to say we are going to go and finish sixth. That enthusiasm, unfortunately, has a counter effect of expecting the top, because that's just nature of human being and nature perhaps of Genoano, that you just want the best. Obviously, we're only on match day 5. We are at 4 points, which we're probably more or less expecting that same amount of points. The part that pisses, and I'm going to say that with a beep sort of thing, pisses us off the most is losing it that way. Now, again, if you remember last year against Parma, how angry were we with that tie? With those 2 silly goals that were ricocheted and so on. That's the exact same thing that happened in the last 4 minutes of a match that was another one similar to Torino, but for different reasons. Torino was a different ball game. We didn't do much, and we just got that one goal like right at the tail end. But same here, but we had one man down with a team that is not going to win anything. It's not going to finish in the top 8, in my opinion. If they do, good for them, mind you, right? But I don't think that we have to keep in consideration the Versa has always been awful for us to play against, even when in his tenures with the cyclists. And on top of that, they're in an amazing form and amazing streak. So even then, a lot of other major teams, Lazio included, well, mind you that now we're thinking maybe Lazio's not that great anymore, but at the same time, a lot of teams have been playing against and they've been losing. Like, they're not for nothing. In 5 matches, they have 11 points and they're sitting third alone. Having said that, mind you, 3 points are because of us, but could have been 1, but it could have been also 0 if we hadn't lost that match. Now, having said that, do we point the finger to the ref? Maybe it's fair to point the fact of saying, calm down, don't like flash out these cards as if like the first card to Martin was, I think, very, very wishy-washy. The second one was legit. So unfortunately, the second one means the red card. And I personally think the one for De Winter, which was another factor in that we had to sub him in the second half. In order to make sure that we're not going to end the match in 9 men. Mm-hmm. Because his yellow card was ridiculous, because he was actually the one being fouled by pulling the shirt. He did the exact same thing after, but because De Winter did not throw himself to the ground, but the Lecce guy did, then he gets the yellow.
Yeah, look, there's no question that Martin going out completely kind of forced our hand in this match, and we had to play a certain way. And I think you're right to say that some of the refereeing decisions were questionable. And my point really is there are 2 ways to look at this, and I don't think either of them are wrong. The way that we've been getting results is admirable. The way that we've gotten results at Napoli, or against Napoli and against Lazio, those are really, really formidable opponents. Those are matches you're not expecting to get something out of. And you have to credit and look at I think you have to take it in both sides, right? Like, in those instances, we managed something positive, and then we got really, I think in both instances, pretty much what we deserved. I think the Napoli match, you could argue maybe we deserved the 3 points. That being said, there has been a consistent pattern regardless of opponent. And again, look, it's fair to say that Lecce they're a good side this year in Serie A, whether or not you believe they're going to finish third, which I think you're right that most people will not put their money and say, I think Lecce are going to finish that way. it's still a difficult opponent.
Absolutely. No, I agree with you. And that's what my point was with respect to the fact of I'm getting angry mainly because I'm seeing posts, I'm seeing people commenting Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and asking for Gilardino's head, which I think is just like pathetically ridiculous.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I actually myself, I mouth out to a guy on Instagram. Well, I wasn't like mean, but I got pissed when I see this post of this page saying that Gilardino's limited. And I'm like, maybe in a way, yeah, but you just don't, like, as a Genoano, you just don't do that. You don't say that. You can say he needs to grow rather than say he's limited, to almost like condemn him to be an idiot.
Yeah, well, yes. I mean, look, I am with you, of course, in this, that Gilardino, I think, is a big reason why we're in Serie A this season. I don't think many Genoano would argue with that, but what I was trying to say before is, the positive side of it is that we've gotten, as you say, we've gotten pretty much the point total that you would expect to have against some difficult opponents. Maybe you could say you would expect to get those points from Torino and Lecce rather than from Lazio and Napoli, but whatever, the points are the points, and we have them, and they're good sides, and we've looked better and felt really encouraged by those results. So how can you not kind of still consider that? But the opposite point is not that far away, to be honest with you, from the Instagram comment, where what are we doing exactly? How are we changing? What is our way of reacting to something like this? When you're down a man away from home against a side that's in form, it's going to be hard to get much out of the match. I think that's a fair thing.
No, that's true. I'm being the devil's advocate. I'm trying not to be, but at the same time, I'm looking at the all angles, because it's easy to put finger and it's easy to condemn something or someone or whatnot, right? But at the same time, we know Malinowski is not in his best shape and form. That's the main reason why he wasn't even called up by Ukraine, because he's missed a lot of matches, and also the training aspect during the summer. So he is definitely not in shape yet. Then we still are missing a key component on the structure of the forward. So that a sense of what's missing from the midfield over to the strikers, which is someone nonetheless called Messias. And I know that you can't necessarily rely only on one player, and if we don't have that one player, we're screwed. But at the same time, I'm sure, and as you have said throughout, Gilardino is not blind. And he definitely is trying to think everything. So he's all seeing where the faults are, and slowly, more and more faults are coming out. But he's also trying to fix those faults, because if you think about it, the growth that we had since our Napoli match was the best match we've ever played since the beginning, right?
Yeah, I think absolutely.
And then you would think that Lecce is a problem. We went backwards? Maybe, yes. But let's also factor in the situations. Away match, never easy to go down in Lecce. The fact of the one man down after 36 minutes, perhaps the mentality, how they went in there with fearing, because they knew it was a direct contender, perhaps because at this point we don't even know if Lecce is going to be a direct contender for relegation. So being part of, one to fight for the last to avoid the top, bottom three. But having said that, as I'm continuing to say lately, is let's just relax and take a seat and starting to enjoy it and hope for. Well, all we can do is hope. Obviously, we are allowed to comment. And what I said also to this guy on Instagram was, let's be constructive rather than destructive.
Well, I think that's very sensible, but. And I, again, I'm pro Gila in the end, but I still think there's got to be some sort of way that we figure out something differently here. And I don't know really what that answer is. Like, do we need a different sort of constellation with the players that we have? It feels kind of scary to say it's Malinowski is the answer, because I don't really know how he becomes an integral player to this team, to be honest. Like, I don't see it. Like, it's been several matches. Look, I know that he needs fitness or whatever, needs training, but this was a guy that was signed before the first match of the season, and he's hardly played at all. And I think he still can be really valuable to us. He has a really dangerous, free kick ability and other things that he can do. But I think there's more systemic problems than just a single solitary player. And one of the things for me that I'm really curious about, and I wonder, because as we've talked about before, one of the things we've seen throughout these first several matches in Serie A, which is different than, not to go down this pathway, but when you think about like Blessing last year in Serie B, we did the exact same lineup pretty much the entire time he was running the show. Whether we had the results or not, you looked at the same formation. You maybe saw one or two players slipped in and out. When we were not getting a result, you didn't really see a whole lot of change. You saw players come in and out in substitution, but it didn't seem like we reacted from a formation side of things or anything else. What you've seen consistently from Gilardino is that he's trying different formations. He's got different things. We've seen many of the lineups that he likes to roll out are flexible, where oftentimes we'll have as example, in the Napoli match, we had a midfielder that almost came back into defense and added to a back five in some moments when we were out of possession. And that also allowed, Bada, as we talked about a couple of pods ago, to run forward and put a pressure on that kind of farthest moving pass coming from Napoli to try to stem them from even getting it into the final third. And so there's been those kind of tactical changes that have happened. But one thing I'm curious about, I wonder if this is a big reason why we've not had that kind of creative spark, is that last season, our success, we really found it with the 3-5-2. And when we did that, a lot of times you saw these kind of triangle movements happening with our fullbacks, and oftentimes Goodmanson or maybe another player on the opposite side, but really more often than not, as we kind of know, it was Goodmanson being involved. And so you would have either a match where Haps was dynamic, which, by the way, I'd be really surprised if he doesn't feature in this match. Sabelli had often had very many well-involved matches, or some, we talk sometimes about his crossing ability, but he had some good ones last season. And I think like the way that our side was building together attacking patterns of play, you had it happening that way. Or, let's not totally forget how we had Massimo Coda kind of deployed and involved last season, which is something I think we've been sorely missing this year, which is we need to find a way for these strikers to kind of have some sort of interplay with each other or something else. And Coda, for as much as people said he wasn't really the capocannoniere we were expecting him to be, he wasn't, sorry, that's the wrong phrase, but he wasn't the goal scoring leader that we expected him to be last season. He maybe wasn't exactly right for Serie A, but we've not really had that connection either. And so I think for me, what I'm really curious about is, with the players we have, I do think we've got some interesting players in the squad, but what does Gilardino do to kind of tweak our formation, or to maybe allow our players to kind of be involved differently, so that we can see a little bit more of that? Because for me, as brilliant as Retegui has been, a lot of what he's been doing, from at least his efforts on goal, are super speculative. They're not like, oh, that was a great move, and Retegui's kind of closing it off with a poacher's goal. He's had a couple of those, but it's a wild effort from 30 yards out. It's him trying to do a rainbow kick at the 45-degree angle of the goalpost. Those aren't things that are normal, and it's exciting that he's that audacious in his efforts, but it's not like we're really moving the ball in with him. And I think that's where all the frustration's coming from, is we have a player finally, which we haven't had for years, a really talented goal threat, but we don't have any real idea of how to get him involved. And we got to figure that out.
Absolutely, yes. And I think that's where most of Gilardino's focus is in right now, waiting also for Messias to come. He started now to train with the team, so it'll take that time in order for his integration to come in. Most likely in the next match, he might even be called up, so perhaps be part of the bench, but from there to be ready to play, it's a different story. Having said that, you bring a good point to compare. I would say Massimo Coda with Matteo Retegui, and I think they're both excellent players for different reasons, but they're definitely two different players.
Oh, absolutely.
In a sense, Retegui is your typical box man. He's in the box. You need him right there. You give him the ball, he'll shut it in, whether it's going to be saved or deflected, but he will. Coda is compared to your point exactly, is the fact that people wanted him to do more goals, but he was a different type of striker. He's more of that complex type of striker that he comes back, builds up, creates more of the action. Perhaps, maybe that's one thing that Retegui is missing, and that Coda had it. So the age definitely had made that difference, and that's why we most likely did not even confirm him even to be on the bench, or maybe he just wanted to continue staying in Serie B. We don't know that. We can only speculate around.
Yeah, I mean, we can only speculate, but it's exactly my point. I think like we almost need that level, like the 2 seasons.
Do we though? Like, if you like, I'm thinking again, we're only commenting on what we see and what we know. We're no experts. We can only speculate. And I'm saying this for all Genoani that are out there listening to us and or commenting themselves. We're not experts. We wouldn't be here talking about it. And we would be in a major club or whatnot. But what I'm trying to say with this is...
Speak for yourself, okay, Fabry.
Oh, sorry. Who am I talking to now?
I'm kidding.
No, I know. What I was trying to get at with this is essentially we are obviously seeing it from the outside. But how I see it from the outside is on the paper, while whether it's not ready for it or not, I see two major players, not minimal players, ready players, Malinowski and Messias, having been bought on purpose to do this component that is missing in the player of Retegui. So this is the duo, and you can add on top of that even maybe Goodmanson with different type of qualities in there as well. But these are the 2-3 players that on the paper are the ones to build up. Maybe even sometimes some of them can even score as well, to give it to Retegui, essentially.
Yeah, I think, I mean, I know I said this just a minute ago that it's having Malinowski be the central part of the team feels like a reach. It looks like that's kind of what the idea is by the way the team is put together. And I'm not saying Malinowski can't play or he's never going to work out or anything. It's just the constellations that we've seen from Gilardino thus far, like I've not seen it be super conducive to an attacking player that has his type of skill set. So, I'm curious about it. And for me, I really do think, though, that we're missing this because, I mean, you go back 2 seasons ago and we're struggling in Serie A. It was an awful campaign to watch. It seemed like Mattia Destro was on his own in much of what was going on, was not very clinical or very good at finishing himself. Last season, we kind of had the inverse of that, where we brought on Kodo, we thought was going to be this like goal scoring machine, but he was really, really good at involving other players in really key moments, even had some great interplay with Yalchin. The only time we've said flowery words about him.
Ooh.
And there was an impact from that. And now when you look at the forwards that we have, like, okay, maybe it doesn't come from the forwards, but I'm definitely scratching my head over this because, okay, Retegui is a little bit of a bigger player. Maybe you could have, a 4-3-3 type module where you've got Messias and maybe Goodmanson's the other winger or something, and they're coming in and there's more of that action or something else. But I mean, Ekuban hasn't really found a way in kind of at all thus far in a way that's really useful, which is for some people not surprising. For others, I still kind of seems like there's a lot of lost promise there that maybe we're never going to get back. You have Puskas, who doesn't look like he belongs in the squad, to be honest with you. He's probably got in. Hopefully, like, we give him a chance. Like, I think he could maybe be that type of player, like the way that Kodo was for some of the other players last season, but he's hardly been involved. And that it really makes you wonder, like, I don't think it was a surprise. Like, we've said this from, before the window is closing, it's pretty obvious that we need at least a backup striker because, God forbid, Retegui goes down, then it's really looking scary. But I think also you've got to find some way to have that kind of play connected because, again, like you look at our midfielders, and it's kind of like the problem that we had last year to a degree. How many of these players are defensive midfielders? Kutlu, Frendrup, Stroman, Badel, Torsby.
No, we don't. But that's one. Sorry, but one definitely important thing that we're not understanding or maybe not remembering is I think our new ownership is definitely not willing to go out there and just buy someone just because, but get someone that either is ready and it has an example, Malinowski or Messias, that have some sort of level of experience that can bring to the team, or some major, what everybody's calling the spores type of thing, where spores purchases, which then eventually turned out to be such amazing purchases, right? But let's not forget that a lot of players were named, and even and it's normal in transfer market, right? But for sure, a lot of them, or some of them, and were actually true. And let's not forget, we are a newly promoted team. with a history of being always on the edge of going down to Serie B. So for any player out there, you're either buying the sales pitch from the management, or you're saying, F that, I'm going to go to whomever other player. Was like one prime midfielder that I can't remember now his name. Maybe you remember it better than I do, but that was edged close to Genoa that refused was because we were not in a cup from Tottenham, I think it was, or something.
Oh shit!
Anyway.
I'm forgetting this guy's name. Oh yeah, it was. I remember. It pisses me off that I'm forgetting this guy's name. Not Tengi and Ndombele, was it?
You got it.
Yeah,
but that's my point. Like you have like out there, it's not easy to say, okay, I have a pocket and I have a wallet and I'm going to dip into my pocket and go out there and buy everything that is possible out there. No, that's not how it works. And also there are players that are deciding whether they want to come or not.
I mean, yes, look, obviously, like we don't have a big budget, but like to me, I think it's totally a side point, Fabry. Like we're not going to have a big wallet. We're not going to have these things. Yes, we're not going to be able to kind of completely open up and spend the way that we spend, but that doesn't change the fact that we need to have a formation that's capable of doing something either, like.
No, and I think on the paper, it was going in that way. Obviously, it's showing that some things still need to be fixed. And whether that is because Gilardino needs to do his magic or because in January we need that one or two players, like again, the example you made for the second striker, who is out there that is well worth and well known enough that wants to come to Genoa and stay on the bench that is better than Puskás or Ekuban?
I mean, I think we would be able to find someone. I mean, look at
who? Give me an example.
Look at a player. So he's already signed, but consider a player like Shadar Azmoun, who's playing for Roma right now. So this is a guy who has played for Leverkusen. His price tag is probably a little bit above where we are. He had a good amount of success at Leverkusen. Didn't quite look like he was going to be the star player for them for a long time. Moves over to Roma. He's not getting a whole lot of playing time there, but he's a really talented player. He's really good with his feet. He's good at that interplay. He can score goals. There are guys in these top leagues that are playing for teams like this, or maybe they're playing for a team
that's my point, right? How much are they expecting as a wage, one? And two, do they want to go and sit on a bench of Roma that is playing in a cup, or do they want to come in the bench of Genoa?
Well, I mean, look, the answer is that there aren't any players at all of interest at all in the transfer market. I think we've got a lot bigger problem than what's going on. I have to believe that there are players out there. My point is, okay, if you want to talk about the squad, I think there are some problems that we have there. I'll be honest with that. Obviously, we've gotten results thus far, but like with how we have our team and how we have our players right now, there's got to be a different idea for how we're figuring these things out. And again, like we've already seen several from Gilardino, so it's not to say that he's not creative and he's not capable of doing something different. But I think when you look at this, the way that we have our team positioned today, we have to take a different route and a different way forward. And I would be a little disappointed if we see 4 central midfielders line up against Roma on Thursday, and we have a very, Strootman, Frendrup, Badel. I don't know. Maybe we put Torsby out there too for good measure. Like if we have like we are rocking up and we are just going to have our defensive midfield trio once again, it's a natural question to say, how in the hell do we get the ball to Goodmanson? How do we get the ball to Retegui? And that's the question that I think we have to answer with the players that we have available. That's Gilardino's job, is of the players we have available with the results we've seen this far, how are you going to maximize this team's potential? And for him to do that, maybe the formation looks different. I don't know exactly what he does. Maybe Haps coming in makes a difference. I'm not sure. But like we have to try something else because there's still, and look, maybe the idea and the identity still is to kind of not put as much forward. But I think we're seeing more and more. Like the points are the points. The results are encouraging. But at the end of the day, as the whole of the season goes along, we have to find different ways of getting value from the season. We can't continue to try this way the whole time. It's early, to your point. It's really, really early. But we've got to see a little different spark, I think, to feel like, all right.
So I'm going to catch you on this one, but do you think we did not deserve to win against Napoli?
I mean, yeah, I would say a draw in the end was a fair result. Like we fought. To say we deserve to win in Napoli is to say that Napoli were lucky to beat us because they have good players, basically. They scored 2 very good goals because their talent is really, really good. So I think a draw in the end was a fair result. We had 2 good chances and we converted them.
My point to that was, if you take away the Campioni d'Italia with their extreme high quality individual players, are you saying that this team is not capable of doing well? And well means doing decent.
I think the concern this season is that if we continue to have 2 or 3 shots on target, the number of games where we convert two out of those 3, I might only have one hand where I can count that the rest of the year. And that's what we're hoping that gets solved. The good thing that keeps you optimistic, like obviously those results were really important. And it's not to say that we don't have a good squad. It's just to say like there's an imbalance within this squad that we have to figure out. But, Torsby's hardly even playing. This guy was one of the bigger signings that we had for the season. I mean, maybe you disagree. I know you played on the other side of things, but like,
it's not because of that. I'm just thinking of a good replacement, a good bencher. I don't see him as a starting 11.
I mean, I think it's kind of wild that was where we prioritized. I'd rather have a guy like Kutlu in that position, who I know also. But like, again, this is part of the whole thing. It's like we have Kutlu on the bench, and we've got Torsby on the bench. We've got these guys that are several CDM type players that are sitting there. And if we're going to rock up every match with 6 guys that are defensive midfielders, like what the hell are we going to expect? Like we should expect that we're just going to have 2 shots a game and hopefully we convert them.
No. And I said that before. And I'm sure that not only the 2 players I have mentioned before, but also Gilardino is definitely trying and thinking of anything possible. And we've seen, in my opinion, that growth happening and that change happening. It's happening slowly and it's not happening overnight. And adding to the fact that we still don't have these 2 key players that were the ones that are going to bring the balls up to the front and for them to have the shots, including themselves doing it, which they're not there. One has not even been playing and the other one has barely played. So what I'm trying to say with that is, let's wait and see before we take too much fast judgment when these 2 players are at their best or close enough. And then at that point, I'll probably either say, you know what, you were right, or you know what, you were impatient.
Well,
when I say you, I mean whoever.
No, I know what you mean. I just think that, like, again, I'm concerned if, our goal efforts are really dependent on Macias and Malinowski. And if that's the answer, I think in and of itself, that potentially is concerning. I believe still that there's a way that we can find more connection and cohesion within our squad and to play better than we are. And to your point, like we've gotten, again, this is not a Gilardino bashing session. I'm not bashing the Genoa side.
You are. I'm being hurt.
Well, I mean, I know that like it comes across as negative, but I think that the other side of this that I think is not, I think it's a valid statement, is that we have 4 points. I think we could have had different results in some of these matches than we did. And those 4 points are really, really good 4 points against really strong teams. But for us to continue and for us to go on, like Lecce were a side that we were, if looking at the calendar at the beginning of the year, you would have expected that we get a point. I think if Aaron Martin doesn't go down, maybe that match looks totally different. And there's a lot of like what have yous. And at the end of the day, it's disappointing because of the result, but it's not, I wouldn't say it's exactly disappointing because of the performance, but it does put a little underline in after the matches that we've seen thus far that says we don't seem to have enough. If we're getting goals, we're usually getting them from set pieces or from some crazy movement that has Retegui on the end of it.
I get what you're saying, Matt, but on my book, on my thought, we are honestly missing at the very least 4 points. If we didn't.
No, absolutely. Right now, at the moment, right now, our point total, I think our point total is reflective of where we should be. But I still think
that's my point. Like if we were at 8, we would not here be talking about what's missing out there, what are we doing wrong, etc. Like again, the match against Torino, very last minute tiredness, distraction, whatever. The Lecce goal, 1 man down, distraction, tiredness, and luck on the Lecce side. And that's already 2 points. And the 2 fantastic, incredible goals by both Politano, I can't remember who the other one was, where if they probably tried to do that again, they'll probably do it, but not necessarily all the time. So what I'm trying to say is, and that's the other 2 points that we are missing. And if we were 8 points, we wouldn't even be here talking about what the fuck is happening. And we our transfer market sucked, and we're not even having the right type of player, right?
Yes, but I think it's pretty charitable to look at it like that, though, to be honest. Like, I know we'll probably keep disagreeing with this one. I just think that, like, if you want to split hairs with all these things, like the common thread is that we're not getting many chances. That is a undisputable fact.
On that, I agree. I agree.
And I think that's specifically the point, is like, if we only have that many chances every single match in a 38 match week season, like the Torino match, we're forgetting we had 3 separate back passes that were nearly goals. Like, we could have lost that match 2 or 3-0. Like,
that's far-fetched.
I think, like, but if that happens, like, let's say, God forbid, we're playing out of the back, we're doing this thing, and they score a goal. We are done. We're not coming back in that game. Like, we don't have enough.
Well, that's essentially what happened with Fiorentina, right? So essentially, that's exactly what happened. But okay, having said that, you are right. We will not have an answer. My point is, I think there are 2 players that are still not there, and I'm going to reserve my judgment up until those are ready to play and play.
Fair enough. I think I would love to see more of Malinovsky, and I think this match is going to be one where maybe we're not going to get the answer to this question, honestly. Like, we're going up against a really difficult Roma side. I think it would be, honestly, it'd be a really good result for us if we get anything out of the match. But, it's definitely a big question, is like, how do we figure out how to add more fluidity to the side? We saw this in Serie B last season. I'm not with everybody exactly that in Serie B it's a different thing and we were playing lesser opponents and that's how it was. Maybe there is some truth to that. But I think, like, we have to solve the problem. I would expect us to probably be a little bit conservative at playing against Roma as well. But I do think Gilardino is going to have a different idea. Because, look, like we've said all along, I don't think Gilardino is turning a blind eye to this. I don't think that his team talk at the end of that match was, oh, well, we were down a man, and it's really hard to win a match when you're down a man, and that is what it is. I think that he was focused on the fact that we didn't get much else out of it. And, similarly with Napoli, maybe the team talk was more about their talent, but I think also in a way, we almost executed to the plan. And I don't think that this is a manager that's looking at the season we just need to kind of nick those points and survive. Obviously, there's a reality to that. But I really think that in his mind, we have partially executed successfully in every match we've played, maybe apart from the Fiorentina match. And I think that's a really positive thing as Genoano to look at, because I don't think that he's looking at this and saying that's how we should be playing. But I think the reality is that is how we are playing, even with some of the introductions and changes that he's made. So it's really going to be an interesting thing to see, like, how do we figure out different ways of getting these players to kind of have more cohesion and play with more of a little bit more gusto. And I think it's possible. It's just an interesting question to understand how it will be.
Okay, before we go to the break, we have an audio clip from Will from our friends at Lecce fan club in the UK, a commentary about the match against Lecce.
Hi guys, Will from official UK Lecce here. Look, unlucky on that game on Friday. It was one of those that we predicted would be very, very close. Fabrizio, you even predicted it would be sadly down to a sending off. Look, it's one of those that for us is great, for you is terrible, but I don't think our season is going to hinge on that. Again, even our goal was a wicked deflection from the shot. It looked like you were going to hold out, and that would have been a massive value-added point for you, bearing in mind that you'd already had the man sent off. Look, good luck with the rest of the season. We hope that you stay up. As long as there's 3 worse teams than us, then we're happy. Good luck for the rest of the season. Ciao for now.
Okay, let's go to the break with our special guest coming right up. My name is Fabrizio Cardone, and I approve this message. Welcome back to La Lanterna Podcast. This is part 2, and we have a special guest. So, we have a midweek match, and we managed, thanks for also the rush on trying to join us. I'll let himself introduce himself to name and everything who he is, and then we'll get into the details of everything. Welcome to our pod, Tad.
Hi guys, thanks for having me on. My name is Tad Burns. I'm the co-founder of Roma Club Washington DC. So I'm the enemy coming in to the Thursday game. We're looking very forward to, as always, playing one of the most storied clubs, if not the most storied club. I believe it's the oldest club in Serie A. So hoping to take 3 points from you guys. Roma Club Washington DC has been a club. This is actually our 10-year anniversary. We got these cool shirts this year with the SPQR on it, taking the lead from Roma. And yeah, we started as a club 10 years ago. Myself and another guy named Marco Charla, who is a much more Italian-sounding name than Tad Burns. First generation Italian. And we just wanted to have a place for people who want to enjoy and watch Serie A, particularly Roma, to come watch a game and have a good time. And, you know, depending on where we're watching it, get some good chicken wings or and a beer or a cacio e pepe or a diavola pizza and a glass of wine. So, thanks for having me on. I'm looking forward to talking to you guys.
So I'm hoping that the beer or the wine doesn't happen when we have those mezzogiorno matches, which is like our 6:30 a.m.
You'd be surprised. You'd be surprised. It's a reason to drink.
That's for sure.
Absolutely.
That's actually a good reason. Absolutely a good reason. So that's interesting. So is that do you guys have a large membership or followership, or how does it work?
Yeah. So, Roma is a Serie A team in the United States. So it's not like we have like Bayern or Manchester United or Manchester or Liverpool following. Yeah. But we've enjoyed a healthy growth in the club. When we started, there was just about 12 of us, and half of those were my co-founder, Marco, like wrangling his childhood friends. I had just moved to Washington, D.C. from Rome, so I didn't know anybody, so I couldn't do anything. But, through the grace of social media and all that stuff, we've actually grown into about 100 dues-paying members.
Wow.
And I would say on our biggest games, we get like 50 or 60 people. We usually get about 10 to 20. And then, of course, when we're playing Sheriff on Thursday at noon, if anyone shows up, we're happy because, somebody's you got to work to buy those buy the Roma hats and Roma shirts. So, yeah. But yeah, no, it's been a healthy following, and I would say the greatest thing about it is the club has basically become like a family to us. We go to each other's weddings, we go to each other's houses for Christmas parties. We're always enjoying meeting and bringing new people in the Serie A community. Sometimes we get like the random Napoli fan for the Derby del Sole, and it's like, why would you want to watch it with us? But it's still fun, like talking to them about like how they got into Serie A and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's a healthy following, and it's great.
That's awesome, Tad. I'm jealous of the upwards of 50 for match days. That's pretty sweet. I'm sure that's an amazing environment when you're.
Well, when we lose to OTFR in the Derby, we don't call them the word. It's a swear word to us. We call them OTFR, the other team from Rome. When we lose them on Derby Day with 60 people there, that's definitely the downside of it.
Different. Fair enough. Very different environment. We also don't like to call our rivals by name or acknowledge them. So I can very much.
We could just simply call them.
It's one of the best. You guys have one of the best derbies in all of Serie A or in all of Europe. So I can definitely understand you, especially the past couple of years. The mud that's been slinged between the two of you, between the two teams, has been legendary. So I can imagine you not want even to say their name.
Well, for sure. Like Merde is just like the easiest way to call them, but that's
definitely
entry level.
We save that for Juve at all times.
Oh, that's we always say the only worst thing of that, we call them even cyclists or whatever, right? Would be a Juve fan, but no offense to obviously to any Juventino if they're even listening to us ever, but but what I wanted to say is so we did not we met Lazio. I think I can say, even though they're not necessarily our friends.
I mean, yeah,
either,
we're going to censor it on our side, but yeah, go right ahead.
Rightfully so. I agree with that. And we did quite an interesting match against them, and I'm sure sort of cheering when that happens is always a given. But nevertheless, obviously, on the motto on their side as well was all we care is just to be above them. And like, is that more of a comment of feeling below them? I don't know. It's always like these rivalries are always interesting, anyways. But looking at the streak so far, so let's go into a little bit of culture itself. But there's a several matches that are happening for you guys. You mentioned Sheriff, obviously. Then there were obviously a few days after it was Torino. Then only 4 days after that is going to be against us. Then 3 days after that, more or less. Anyways, I'm not counting. I'm just more or less quickly looking a glimpse at the calendar. It's going to be against Frosinone, and then there again Europa League coming back in again. So I know obviously no comparison with our team, especially for us coming back from Serie B, even though it was only for 1 year and so on. But obviously the bench is going to be longer compared to ours. But do you foresee rotation, or what's the focus? More, I would say, seems more to be on the Serie A side, or would be more on the Europa League side?
That's a really good question. Having Jose Mourinho as our manager, he's all about collecting trophies, and, us getting the Conference League trophy, our first European trophy outside of John Smith's, English trophy in 1922, but like our first proper European trophy, and then making the final last year. And then if you look at the additions that we've made over the transfer window, I think that those two things together, that we're always looking to get a good foot in Europe. Yeah. Now, that being said, Genoa is always a tough team to play. And us looking at Torino, I mean, we're all just kind of praying that they would, how that game went, that we would, be subbing off Dybala and Lukaku and some of our starters, so we could play, many more, so they could play more minutes in future games. I guess a long story long is, for us, injuries are an issue. We definitely want to get Lukaku warmed up. We want to have Dybala in prime, going through the season in prime focus and prime form. But at the same time, we can't afford to, if the other goal is to go top four, is to, lose to our neighbors, Frosinone, and then, drop points to Genoa. So it's so early in the season. I would say that, Jose Mourinho definitely wants to win European trophies. Jose Mourinho definitely wants to go top four. How those two things coincide is an interesting question. But at this point, our bench is basically we're getting Lorenzo Pellegrini back. Hopefully, it's kind of it's as jumbled as the answer. It's kind of a mad scramble as to how we're going to fit the Europa League matches into Serie A with so many minutes in the next 2 weeks that I think Mourinho, he's got his hands full, definitely, for sure.
Let me add to that question, which is obviously it's a very complicated answer, but that's the Jose Mourinho's point of view. But what about from a Romanista's point of view? What would the preference be from you guys?
Well, as a Romanisti, we want everything all at once at the same time. We're never satisfied, and we also, we're always hosed. I mean, you look at Mourinho's comments lately that, he says that we didn't lose the Europa League final, and how much the Romanisti love Mourinho. I would say at this point, if you were to ask me as an American from Iowa, who's not Italian, who loves Roma and lived in Rome for 10 years, I would go for top four. I think Champions League soccer is, something that needs to come back to Rome. It's been several years since, we've played in that tournament. So I would say, yes, go for the league, not, try and take 3 points from Genova is going to be really difficult. Definitely try and take 3 points from Frosinone. And get the team set in their mentality that top four, especially since you've seen that Rudy Garcia is not working out at Napoli, that there's an opportunity for Roma to get it in the top four. That would be, as my personal opinion, would be what we should go for.
Do you find, are there any negative kind of feelings about Jose so far with the campaign? It's obviously been a little bit rockier, but the last few matches have gone kind of more to expectation. Kind of, how do you attribute that kind of slower start with the first couple of matches?
Yeah, I mean, of course, like when we come out the breaks, we would love to take all the points. I think there's two answers to that question. One is, I think most people in Rome worship the ground that Jose Mourinho walks on. He has murals in the city. Like I said, we got the Conference League trophy. We went to the Europa League final. We haven't made the Champions League, which is, I guess, also why I would say it would be important for us to do that the year for most Romanisti. But at the same time, we all know Jose Mourinho's past.
Yeah,
that he we're kind of one season past the blowed up mode.
Right.
It's encouraging that he turned down basically all the money in the world from Saudi Arabia. So I think, but in the back of everyone's mind is that Jose Mourinho at any point could just decide he wants to go back to Chelsea or decide that he wants to coach another team. But at the same time, I think like everybody just loves him for the results that we've had, and to have that prominent a coach at the helm of our team is kind of a dream come true. So it's the last major coach we've had, I think, since Capello.
I have to agree with that. Yeah, absolutely. To Matt's point, like, except the thrashing 7-0 against Empoli, mind you, it was Empoli, but still.
Empoli hasn't said yet to score. I've scored more goals in Serie A than Empoli has.
Well, the other ones have been a little bit, problematic, or trying to find the form, or maybe getting the players. Not that there are many new players, but there are quite some important new players to get the gist of what Mourinho wants, or like what's happening, I guess the question is.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a slow start, and it's one that is a little bit alarming. Like, the first two games of the season leading up to Milan, we should have blown the doors off them. Especially, coming off of a European final, we should have carried. But also, Jose Mourinho was on suspension, so like he wasn't on the bench. We can argue about like how important that is. It was definitely a lackluster start. I think Milan is going to be a problem this year for most teams.
Yeah.
So a Friday Milan game, and Roma, we're kind of 50-50 on beating the top six teams on the table. 50-50, I think the 50% on the Roma side is doing some heavy lifting. We in the past couple of years, we haven't really produced against them, against the top six tables on the team. And then also, like you said, we were searching for a striker forever. You guys got the one that I wanted, Redigai. I think we auditioned or were connected to about every striker and between Azerbaijan and Scotland. And then, kind of some deals coming together at the end, and then some early injuries. So I think, this team right now is still trying to find its form. The good thing is, and then, Pellegrini and Smalling getting hurt, which has been kind of two of our standard bearers for the last couple of seasons. And, obviously Pellegrini being our captain. I think that we're just kind of rounding it out. The good thing is I don't think that Mourinho has shirked his plan from this is the formation we're going to run. This is how we're going to play. Mourinho's going to play Mourinho ball. It doesn't matter if it's a pickup game in the Foro Italico outside the stadium or, in the Stadio Olimpico. He's going to play that way. So I think we're still trying to find our way. The good thing is we have a few more games until OTFR, who's been who's played well against us in the derby in recent years. So yeah, I think it's just kind of all coming together. I mean, Romelu Lukaku, he as we saw yesterday, has that turn and shoot ability. So yeah, I think we're kind of putting it together. We've had some injuries. Hopefully we put it straight so we don't, drop points at teams that we shouldn't.
Points are more aimed towards, I guess, based on your words, towards the middle, lower table versus the top six. Is that what I'm hearing?
No, once we got Lukaku and once we got Renato Sanchez, I think that, if we're not shooting for top four and having Jose Mourinho as the coach, if we're not shooting towards top four, I don't know what we're doing. I would say anything outside the top four this season, after 3 years of Jose Mourinho would be a failure for us.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of talent in the squad. I mean, you talk about Renato Sanchez, who's of course not available for this match upcoming, but I mean, even just looking at some of the players that have recently come on board, I mean, Houssam Aouar, who's probably not played all that much. You have Evan Ndicka, who any Bundesliga fan might remember from Eintracht and being really one of the top young defenders there, and of course Lukaku, Dybala. I mean, I think we all remember our match last season in the Coppa Italia, where we knew we were up against it with the talent and the quality of Roma, and we're looking at that again at this match week, and it's going to be kind of challenging. I mean, it's a really interesting thing to kind of look at where we are on the table right now. I don't know if Genoa have over or underperformed versus where we'd expect. Honestly, I think partially, I have to say, as unbiased, we maybe even with our points total only being 4, that we've overperformed a little bit relative to where we would have expected to be and how we've done thus far. But when you look at those teams in kind of the same cluster that we're in right now, there's around 4 of us, and I mean, I don't think you can discredit the Empoli match because it happened and it was a fair result. But if you take away those 7 goals against Empoli, we're all kind of at around like 4 or 5 goals scored and 8 or 9 goals conceded.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be like, I'm really curious to see what happens on our side. There's definitely some, we've had these kind of strange up and down moments with Gilardino as our manager this year, and how we approach this match is really, really interesting, because I think we've generally been pretty conservative, focused on trying to kind of shore up the defense, especially after that opening loss to Fiorentina. But, we saw it in the last match. Fortunately, we get down to 10 men, but we never really had anything going forward. And we've seen that pretty consistently the last few matches. So it'll be interesting to see how Gilardino approaches this one. I don't expect Jose to be negative at all in this match. So I don't know. It's kind of a curious one, but I really have a hard time kind of writing off Roma's attacking talent, regardless of those results, sans the Empoli match, because it's everywhere. There's so many quality players in that squad, even with players available now.
Well, the good news about Roma for you guys is we have the ability to lay down a total stinker and you could beat us 4-0. The Empoli match was a dream against a team that, like you said, hasn't scored a goal all season. And, against, regardless of Rudy Garcia, Napoli is a quality defensive team, even losing Kim, and you guys putting up 2 on them. And, we just saw us play Torino, like from the Roma standpoint, is a 1-1 draw was kind of like fair, because we didn't do really anything to win that game other than, play the old backyard football game of just kick Lukaku and he'll put his back on somebody and turn and shoot. So, and I just always think that Genoa was a tough out, and it's that you guys always know how to defend, and I think that what your mentality is going into the game should be to get points. And I don't think, despite the 7-0 game against Empoli, I don't think Roma's, this unstoppable force of a team that's going to come in and steamroll. And, we have Dybala, and obviously Sanchez is out. Dybala could break a toenail in practice and miss 3 weeks.
Fair enough.
And so I look forward to what I think to be a proper Serie A match of 2 proud, storied teams that are, trying to get points off of one another.
Well, the good thing, at least from our perspective, is that it's going to be at the Ferrari, so it's going to be in Genova. So we will definitely have the pitch factor, or, however you want to call it. But on the other side, obviously, Roma is not going to necessarily come to sit back and wait for the game that Genoa is going to be playing. So to your point, definitely, I'm expecting quite, an entertaining match. Definitely will be probably starting kind of like studying each other. And I'm sure like Gilardino has to prove himself still in Serie A. There has been too many yo-yos so far that there's still nothing to say, okay, you are worth that Serie A type of bench. When it comes to a Genoa match, obviously, even Matt mentioned before the match that we had last year for the Coppa Italia. Sure, there's no technically actually to it, but we are neopromoted, so we're newly, coming from Serie B. So there's pros and cons for that. Does not mean that we're new to Serie A, but obviously there's a whole bunch of management and the new ownership behind us and so on. So there's a lot really to prove ourselves, even going forwards. But what's the expectation, I guess, from a Roma's perspective in this match, other than the fact of what you were just saying, obviously, the fact of coming over and saying, playing your game. But is there a little bit of a fear, or is there, I'm talking about generically speaking, not only like from your perspective, or, going there and saying, we're going to just roll them over because they are newly promoted?
Well, one of the things you got to love about being a Serie A fan is it is still like the early part of the season, and isn't Lecce still like number 2 on the table?
Yeah,
And
Not that we help them for that, but that's a different
But no, it's just it's a lot of, being such a tactical league. There's a lot of like coaches trying to feel each other out. If you were a Roma fan, you would know that you are never confident about going into any match at any time ever. We've blown it so often, and not usually, cut that, but sometimes when we really need it, we can't seem to find it. I would not say that the Roma mentality going up north to play, and it might depends on the elements of the game, like it might be a rainy game, whatever. I would not say that it's going to be a steamroll. I would say that if you were to put a sword to the heart of every Roma fan and be like 1-0, they'd be like, I'll take it. 1-1, I'll take it. It's always hard going up north and playing the Genova teams. Not only are your guys' jerseys probably the coolest in all of Serie A, year in, year out, even in Serie B. I think that even a newly promoted team, like the mentality for anybody that's a Roma fan is that Genoa is a Serie A team that just kind of went down to B once. It goes down to B once or twice. It's not. You guys are always going to be a tough out, and so I don't think that the mentality for any Roma fan, other than the most bombastic one, is that we're going to blow the doors off of Genoa when we go up there. I think, especially a midweek game with a lot of minutes on the table, we're just hoping that Belotti just remembers how to beat you.
It's a plausible outcome for sure. I will say one bizarre thing that maybe has us feeling optimistic, which this is probably bad to say, but having Aaron Martin out for this match actually might be a good thing for us. I think it's maybe somewhat controversial. I think he's actually a wonderful fullback, but like so far we've seen positives and negatives from him. I wouldn't necessarily class him as a really strong defensive player, definitely much more of an attacking fullback. And so I think you're right that there's definitely going to be a fortress-like mindset from Giordino and the boys come Thursday, and they're going to try to get a result out of the match. I do agree with that. And I think for us, the big questions are going to be, we think the defense can hold up reasonably well. We hope that's the case. Can we get ball forward to Retegui? Will Albert Gudmundsson bounce back? He kind of had a little bit of an uncharacteristically poor performance against Lecce. So there are a couple of things to watch for sure.
But amazing against Napoli again.
Right. Yeah.
If you remember from last year, talking about Gudmundsson, is I feel that it seems like the team, maybe hopefully this year is not going to be like that heavily heavily dependent on him. So when he has a bad match, we usually lose.
We almost always lose. We don't even get a point.
Like lose, exactly. So that definitely, in my opinion, happened with Lecce, but it was totally the opposite against Napoli. So the only hope is that he's like in his total mayhem day, that he's ready to kill everybody.
I love that dude. I have an Azzurri jersey of him. He's just big, mean, and ornery. And it has a nose for goal, can score with his head, can bomb it in from outside. I was really hoping that he would end up in Roma one day.
Well, he can definitely jump the man. He's like, I think there was a stat that he was like one of the top, this was before the match against Lecce, but he was the top dribbler in Serie A. So that's quite a bit.
And he's mean.
And he's mean. That's important.
He's mean. I love it. I'm a big Giallorossi guy, so like, and also Totti he had an ornery streak in him as well. That's so true. Like, I know I guess in Argentina, he's Argentinian, right? But like Italian as well. Like anytime you get a mean streak in a forward that has played in a lot of high pressure situations, I always gravitate towards that.
Yeah, we were messaging on the chat. He's just like always, it's like a madman when he's playing, like you can see that fire in him, but also he has this kind of bombastic maybe, or just, devil may care type attitude when he's playing, where it seems like no matter where he is on the pitch, you always have to look out for what Retegui is going to do, even if it's one of those like strange positions where there's not necessarily an opportunity, or it's like not even a half chance. I mean, he makes them look like they could happen. And honestly, I think that's a big reason why we have 4 points right now. It's because we have a forward like that who can try to get something, even when we don't have quite as many opportunities. Where so far, generally, we've been pretty good at taking what's been given to us, I guess you could say.
I think if he could rip out his front tooth and throw it at the ball to knock it in the goal, he would do it. He's just kind of one of those guys. He's cut from a different cloth.
So before we go into predictions and ideas of what is upcoming, what would be, if you had to pinpoint the weakest things that you are more afraid of? I mean, you did outline a few already, and what's the strongest that even though you kind of mentioned that there is no consistency, even from Roma's perspective, being the fact, I'm just quoting when you said the fact that can be like a killer, or you can also win, meaning us, we can win also for nothing.
So you're saying what I fear most about this Thursday game and what I look forward to the most? Is that the question? Sorry.
Based on the fact of your experience of what the team is, like what's the weakest spot of the team and or Mourinho, and what's the strongest that we have?
I think that right now, unfortunately, our weakest point is our defense. And that's a tough thing to say about Mourinho Ball, considering he's such a defensive-minded player, but a player like Matty R, he can definitely get behind our defense, and he can poach goals, he can score from distance, he can head them in. I kind of fear that with our back three right now, which I think Indica is still getting his feet wet. Smalling still hurts. We played Cristante at center back against Torino to start out. So I think I fear the getting into kind of like the punching match that we got in with Torino over the weekend, that we'll get in that in an away game against Genoa, and that will allow us to kind of get lulled to sleep, because our fullbacks are not really playing great defense right now either. That we'll give up a set play goal, or we'll fall asleep. And also Rui's been good for us for a couple of years, but he is very suspect this year. Yeah. That he might, give up a cheap one. What I would say I would be excited about is that, if we start Dybala and Lukaku, which is a big if, we might be saving them. I don't know. But if they are able to kind of just use their natural skill to put a lot of pressure on Genoa's defense, and we can get a lead. I know, Lukaku scoring, and then we gave up the equalizer to Torino over the weekend was kind of heartbreaking. But I think if we can put a 1-0 lead on Genoa, maybe we can sink back. Maybe we can give that back three, the support that they need, and maybe we can come out with 3 points.
It's interesting. I was looking at the formation mostly on the module. It seems like most of the tactics with Mourinho, it's very difficult to tell because he's like unpredictable at the end. Mm-hmm. But it seems like his preferred kind of approach is like a 3-5-2 or
3-5-2 almost every game.
Right.
Until we put the subs in, yeah.
Which you can have some variation with 3-4-2-1, as we've seen against Torino, which was my point, is to say, was that something that kind of surprised everyone with that type of formation? A little bit more on aggressive, maybe, or maybe not?
I think that's a good question. I think it was kind of more of an organic thing. And I think that, even if you look at the modules, like, and if we're in a certain formation, kind of the default thing is a 3-5-2. And yeah, it's really tough to say, because it kind of depends on the personnel, but I think our default is 3-5-2. I think that's probably what we're going to go up against Genoa. I wouldn't be surprised if the top two is Belotti and Lukaku right off the top. I would just say that the only thing that's been kind of different is, we got Rasmus Christensen, who everybody in Leeds says was the worst player in the world, but he's been actually quite good for us. And Spinazzola, they've been way more forward than I think you would have seen Jose Mourinho teams in the past, that they're big on the attack. And I don't know the reason behind that. Maybe it's just because we have a more offensive team. Maybe we trust the pivots more than we have in the past. That's just the way that Jose Mourinho sees it. But that's kind of the thing that surprised me the most, is that we get Rasmus Christensen, and he seems to spend all his time in the attacking half.
So you're saying there's a chance. Do you guys, you mentioned Smalling earlier, I don't think he'll be available either, right? Because he's still out with injury.
Yeah, he's still out. There's rumors that Lolo Pellegrini will be back.
I'll be one to watch
to see if he's in form or not. So I guess what I'd like to do is get a little bit more tight, a little bit spicy here, and see what the predictions are for the match for the three of us. Give a little bit of analysis of how you foresee what the match can turn out, with the possibility of the scoreline, and if you want to even be more in depth with the possible scorers, if there are any goals, by the way.
It's always the risk. My head tells me that's going to be a bit more of a sparring match, but my heart tells me us going into these run of games is that Mourinho's going to try and put the game away in the first half, so he can bring on Zalewski or Bove or some of the younger players to get some playing time. So I think that the game's going to start off full court press. I think we're going to start Lukaku and Belotti up top. I think we're going to have Dybala playing. I don't think that El Shaarawy will start, obviously. He'll probably come on later. But I think that we're going to try and get 2 goals in the first half. I see Lukaku scoring, and I'm just going to go ahead and say it. The only Brian in the Serie A, Cristante, they're both going to score in the first half. And Genoa's going to pull one back in the second half, and it's going to be a 2-1 Roma win. But I'm not biased at all.
No, right? Matt, what do you think?
Well, I have to first say, because I think this is amazing, and you guys might remember this, and maybe Ted, this might be something that may or may not jog your memory. I know you said you've been a fan for about 10 years or so maybe longer. The last time Genoa beat Roma was about 10 years ago, a little bit less than, May 18th, 2014. It was 1-0 at the Ferraris. I think it's incredible. Do you remember, Fabry, who scored that goal?
No.
It was
the Genoa player that scored that goal?
Yes. So,
oh my God, I think I do.
So
2014, it would have been.
If you get this, I will be so impressed.
I can't look at my phone. Okay, 2014 at the Ferraris, 1-0 Genoa win. I know it wasn't Kevin Strootman.
That's right.
No, sorry, I can't get it.
So Yannis Fetfatsidis was the guy that scored the goal coming on.
Oh,
this is. Yes. I think it was the last match day of the year too back then.
Yeah. Well, that just means that Kevin Strootman is going to score in this game.
I mean, it was remarkable. Mattia Destro was playing for Roma at the time. Rudy Garcia was the Roma manager. We had Portanova, his father, as our defender back in the time, Daniele Portanova. So this was a long time ago when I think Totti came off the bench, but he might have been injured or something before then. So anyway, point being, it's been quite some time.
No, that's a horrible walk down memory lane, but it's very much appreciated.
It was probably it may not have been that meaningless for us at the time, but that seemed like a classic Preziosi squad too, looking at some of the other players in that lineup. I think that this will be a difficult one for Genoa to win, and I'm bringing that statistic up partially because it has been such a long time since we've gotten 3 points out of Roma. I can see us again ending the match in a draw. The heart says we can get a little bit more. I think from this match, again, all Genoano are asking the same question. Will Gilardino take a chance with the match? Will he do something a little bit more adventurous? We kind of had to play in a very defensive way when we went down a man to Lecce. And to be fair, Lecce have also had a good campaign this season, so losing to them isn't exactly shameful, especially when you're down a man. But what we've seen a lot this season, we've never peppered the goal in any of our matches. We've gotten a couple of chances. We've often scored from set pieces. You maybe get Retegui doing something outlandish and trying to make something out of nothing. The match has been Goodmanson has been really on form, which has been much more often than not. As Fabry said before, there's always that little chance or that little spark that something happens. I think the Strootman shout is actually kind of a good one. He's always capable of that kind of mid-long range attempt, and he has been, I think one thing that we did see, he was involved in Retegi's last goal. He's been up in that kind of final third as well, more recently. I think the match will probably end 1-1, which I think will be a phenomenal result for us if we're able to pull it out. I actually think that we might see a little different sort of way of going about this match from Gilardino. I think, I don't know if we try to have Malinowski involved earlier in the proceedings, if we're thinking about maybe we go like dual 3-5-2s, like back to the formation that Gilardino trusted so much in Serie B. I don't know exactly how it's going to play out, but I have to think that we are going to need to find a different way of playing. And we've similarly been, at times it seems like, huff it up to Retegi, or, we've done this kind of silly play it from the back with Martinez stuff, which Fabry knows it's been driving me crazy. But I think we're going to have to find a balance somewhere between there. I think, and I believe, that Gilardino is seeing this as much as we are. And so that's why I'm a little bit opportunistic and hopeful, because if there's one thing we've seen from him, he's pretty clever at trying to get a different action from the team. Even though we've not really peppered or really found that kind of creative spark, he's done different things with formation or putting players in different kind of roles. I'm kind of a little bit of blind faith in Gilardino and thinking he can get something with this, but I think maybe we can. I have a hard time imagining that we'll be able to hold on in all of the matches we've played. Obviously, Napoli, we ended up with a draw. Lazio, we get a win, but we were definitely like holding on for those 3 points. I think we're going to have some chances that we're going to need to be prepared for, but I don't know. I have a surprisingly optimistic feeling about this one, and for me, 1-1 is about as optimistic as I can see it being, but I do think maybe we have it in us. What do you think, Fabry?
I'm going to open it up with another past match that will probably, I'm going to say it's probably my preferred match of Genoa, and it was against Roma in Genova a few years before yours. So that was 2011. I don't know if you remember that at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, I've been a Roma fan since 2005. So
we're good.
When I was aware that they were a team right before Italy won the World Cup.
Excellent. Let me bring it up and see if anybody kicks in to say, yes, I do remember it. So it started in the first half. Roma was up 3-0 with a goal by Totti, Mexes, and a goal by Bordiso before he came over to Genoa. So 3-0. Well, actually, I said the first half, but it was right at the beginning of the second half where Roma did the 3-0. At that point, it seemed like the game was over. And I would say, I even don't know how to say that in English, but the biggest rimonta, the biggest catch-up, the biggest, whatever you want to call it, that I can't even think of probably in Serie A, where at the end of the match, Genoa won 4-3.
It was
an amazing match.
No, I will forever hate Palacio for that match.
Doppietta, you're right, by Palacio, and Paloschi, another doppietta by him as well. So it was just like the ultimate quintessential comeback, I would say, from any perspective. Trying to open that up also because back in that match too, we had Orsat. Orsat is going to be also the ref for this match.
Yes, the Roma killer. Orsat was the goalie in that. Sorry, was the referee in that match, wasn't he?
Yeah, but he's a killer for a lot of teams anyways. But
unless it's Juventus, yeah.
I know, that's right. I should have said that. But that's not every other team. That's, a different story. So I wanted to open that to give, a good omen to the match happening. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, I think it's going to start very nervously. I can see possibly because of that also that we will be conceding first because of the, both teams kind of understanding each other and so on. It's essentially, in my opinion, a tripletta, as we say in Italian. That means it can go anyway. So it can be a win for Genoa, it can be a tie, and it can be also a loss, meaning a win for Roma. Just because of the fact of the two great tacticians, because even though Gilardino's at its first experience in Serie A, he's been proven to be a great tactician against probably the most known tactician in calcio and in Europe. But I would say that it's going to be quite tough, depending on the mentality. Ultimately, we've seen that with the Lazio match, with the Napoli match. If there is the right mentality, we can hurt. And that's what I'm hoping for, that can happen. So if that mentality is there, I can probably even think of a win from Genoa, like a 2-1.
Well,
But if the mentality is not there, then it's all yours.
yeah.
Though it'll probably finish, honestly, like 1-0. Just because the mentality, the Fiorentina match counts nothing because it was just wrong everywhere. But we have proven, at least with the big ones, because obviously all the other ones no, but that so far we've been doing well. So I would think, I'm hoping. So I'm putting the heart and the mind here that if the mentality is right, there is a chance of having a win. And I'm probably the only one going against everyone here. But if that mentality is there, I see a 2-1 win.
No. Fabrizio, I don't think that's outlandish for you to think, and I'm going to get burned at the stake by everybody at Roma Club DC on this. Is you brought up our bench before, and I think our bench is a little thin, and especially in the defense. And I think that it's not outside the realm of possibilities that if Genoa and fired up in a home game can catch Rome flat-footed, which Roma, to be honest, is. That you can catch them flat-footed, especially if they're looking on down the road to Europa League games or weekend match games. So it's not outside the realm of possibilities that, especially with the squad you guys have right now.
Gilardino has been kind of questioned throughout left, right, and center for the fact that he's doing quite well in defense, even though there's two major things that they're pointing a finger at him. Is one, the build-up of any type of action. While right now they're only like hoping for some quick ball counterattack or whatnot, and that's how they get the goals. So one point is building better that action, and the second one is the distraction in the last 5-10 minutes, and that's where we've been hurting the most with most of the goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's apparently my dog really agreed with that last point, by the way, because she wanted to chime in. But I think it's kind of a symptom of us kind of having to defend and play the way that we've been playing. I don't think Gilardino is wrong for wanting to have the team organized that way, but naturally, when you're maybe not in possession as often, when you have more of that industrious kind of team plan, not even like spirit, like that's kind of how we're lining up for matches. Guys get thin by the end of the match, and I mean, to both your guys' points, we don't exactly have a whole lot of rotation typically within the squad as well. So that'll be another one to look for. That's a good point, Fabry.
But I think it's also shown that I don't think that Genoa is afraid of anybody.
It's true.
They'll score on the reigning Scudetto champions. They'll score on, the Fiorentina, which was the darling of the Serie A for their transfer window coming in this season. They'll score on anybody.
Yeah, that's true. You do have a point there, and possibilities are open. Okay, so I guess we're at a wrap. I wanted to make sure that if anybody wanted to reach out to you guys, whether because they're in a neighboring area or because they haven't heard about you, apparently not, because they're like over 100 people, but
that's every Roma fan in the Washington, D.C. area. And I personally tracked them down like a bounty hunter.
Hey, Ted, it's an accomplishment, I'll tell you. You ask my wife, like I see somebody in a t-shirt, like a Roma shirt walking down the street, and I'll pull the car over and be like, hey, Roma Club Washington DC. And they're like, yeah, I went there like on a study abroad trip 10 years ago. I don't care about the team. But I'm like, Francesco Totti.
So we'll have to get a little bit more Genoa fans from the DC area, because I haven't ever heard of anyone in that area. You're a little bit closer to them, Matt, but
No, I mean, honestly, I don't know as well. We should always put our feelers out with the Genoa NC Resta and some of the others. Maybe Stefano knows. Stefano's almost as close, actually, being
in New York.
In New York, we've got a good amount. Yeah, really like our active group amount, like per match, if we're going and showing up, will be in like the 5 to 10 to upwards of 20. And our active group number in New York is probably about double that or so. And usually like a handful of us are really involved on the group chat. But
Genoa fans are too busy crafting things and making beautiful art, or
that's right,
building a ship, or like making sauce or something.
Yeah. We'll see at the after party, not during the match.
We every time we in the group chat when we play Genoa, we call it Team Pesto.
Rightfully so, and there's nothing wrong with that. We can call you Carbonara or something like that, right?
Yeah, Team Cacio e Pepe, yeah.
Team Cacio e Pepe, that's right. How can they reach out to you guys, Ted?
Yeah, so we are on basically all social media platforms. Roma Club DC is the handle for Instagram and Twitter. Facebook at Roma Club Washington DC. Otherwise, info at romaclubwashingtondc.com. We watch all the games. We never miss them. We split between two places in Washington DC. One is called very Romanista in Bocca al Lupo, which is probably, for my money, the best pizza in all of Washington, D.C. And then the other place is Ireland's Four Courts, which is kind of your typical Irish sports pub, but it's fantastic. We started there 10 years ago. Both places are great viewing experiences. But yeah, you can reach out to us on any social media platform, Roma Club DC. Otherwise, my phone number is, just joking, but anybody that's in the Washington DC area and just trying to catch a Serie A game, Roma Club DC, it's a great time. We come one, come all.
So definitely thank you for that. So same for us, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as I mentioned before. So I'll be posting the episode coming up and tag you guys on it. So you can always drop a like, put us any type of comment, but never forget, always and forever, Forza Genoa. You've listened to La Lanterna, a spotlight on Italian football, a podcast powered by Genuani Si Resta. Thank you for listening and see you next week.